These are the lecture notes for Chapter 1, which is called An Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. The learning outcomes are listed here. I'll go ahead and read them. Describe the basic functions of living organisms. Explain the relationship between anatomy and physiology, and describe various specialties of each discipline. Identify the major levels of organization in organisms from the simplest to the most complex. Identify the 11 organ systems of the human body and contrast their major functions. Explain the concept of homeostasis, and that's going to be a recurring theme throughout the entire course, by the way, is homeostasis and how each of the 11 body systems function to help maintain homeostasis in the human body. And then going to 1.6, describe how negative feedback and positive feedback are involved in homeostasis. In 1.7, use anatomical terms to describe body regions, body sections, and relative positions. This one is extremely important, so I'm going to circle it. 1.7 for sure. Make sure that you learn the terminology in this chapter. But 1.7 is probably the most important, and it will be the one that I ask the most questions about on your exams. So then we have 1.8, identify the major body cavities of the trunk and the subdivisions of each. And I apologize for this. My pointer sometimes I have to play with it a little bit. I don't know why. There we go. All right. So on this slide, basically just make sure you understand that anatomy and physiology is a branch of biology, which of course is the study of life or living things. We're going to be learning human anatomy and physiology. Common functions that all living things share, including humans, is responsiveness, growth, reproduction, movement, and metabolism. Responsiveness, what you need to know about this characteristic is that we are able to respond to a change in our environment. This is also called irritability, but it doesn't mean, you know, how we use it in everyday language. It just means that we are able to, we are capable of having a response to something. So irritability doesn't mean that we're irritable or that we're, you know, hard to get along with, or just means that the way we're designed to respond to different stimuli. So for example, a painful stimulus, if you touch a hot stove, your response is to move your hand away. And just to give you an example that's not on this page, first thing in the morning, someone comes into your room and turns on a bright light. You're not ready for it. You've just woken up. Your response is going to be various things, but you'll probably make a face, and you'll probably close your eyes, and you may say some words that you don't normally say. You know, in that case, you really truly are irritable, more than likely. But irritability can also be a good thing. So like the smell of coffee in the morning, if you like coffee, or the smell of breakfast may help wake you up in a better way to where your response is more calm and peaceful. And so responsiveness is defined as the capacity to make, or I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The human beings have the capacity to make longer term adjustments. All living things do. And that is called adaptability. And obviously we're not going to grow a heavier coat of fur in winter, but we can make longer term adjustments, such as Well, we just, in the summertime, we tend to wear different clothes than we do in the wintertime. That's one thing. And we go and we actually adjust our thermostats so that the air condition comes on or the heater comes on, depending, So responsiveness is just responding to a stimulus in the environment in some way. So growth can be an increase in the size of cells, or it can be actually the cells dividing, and the addition of new cells. So the cells can grow in size, or they can divide and we can get new cells. And there are somewhere around 10 trillion cells that make up our body structure. And then we have about 90 trillion cells that are microorganisms that live inside of us and grow on us. But that's how we increase in size, is by our cells getting larger or dividing. Our cells can also differentiate or specialize. And we will, one of our first chapters, once we get past the review chapters, is on tissues or histology, and that is, we're going to talk about the different cells that form the tissues of our bodies. So how we have, of course, we have muscle cells that are specialized to contract, and nerve cells that are specialized to conduct. So the cells becoming different or becoming specialized is also a part of growth. Reproduction is just the ability to create new generations of the same species of organism, and humans are capable of that. Movement is another characteristic, and if we think about living things such as plants, the movement can be internal, as in moving water up through the plant from the roots up to the leaves and the branches. So the movement can be internal inside the organism, or it can be external. And humans, of course, are capable of external movement. Metabolism is defined as the sum of all the chemical reactions that occur in the human body. All the chemical operations or reactions that occur in the body. Chemical reactions do a lot of different things. They can help provide us with energy. The chemical reactions involved with digestion and cellular respiration. And they can also help, they can provide the energy for responsiveness, growth, reproduction, and movement, the different characteristics that living things have. Cells can take the nutrients from food. They can break food down into nutrients like glucose and simple sugars and amino acids and fatty acids, and use those nutrients to build other molecules that are needed by the body. Cells can use oxygen in different ways to carry out these chemical reactions. So metabolism is just talking about all the breakdown reactions and all the building reactions. Some of the reactions of metabolism are involved in respiration. Respiration, we think about breathing. It's the absorption of oxygen, the transport of oxygen, and the use of oxygen by our cells. And most of the time, we don't just talk about oxygen, but also the other gas that we produce as a waste product, carbon dioxide, is involved as well in respiration. And then digestion is breaking down the foods that we eat into simpler compounds. Digestion can be mechanical, where we just chew the food up and break it down into smaller particles. And it's also chemical, where we take large proteins, for example, or fats, and break them down into their smaller components, amino acids and fatty acids. Then we have excretion, which is deals with waste products. So that can deal with sweat or urine. or even we normally think about the digestive system as eliminating solid waste, and then the excretory or urinary system as eliminating liquid waste. Sorry, I'm trying to. There we go. Okay, so a checkpoint question. How do vital functions such as responsiveness, growth, reproduction, and movement depend on metabolism? Well, just a simple answer is they all require energy in the form of ATP, and that energy is produced through cellular respiration. And that's one of the main chemical reactions involved in our metabolism. Okay, moving on. Anatomy is literally means a cutting open, and we typically talk about with anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is the part that deals with structure. It's divided into gross anatomy, which means macroscopic, or studying parts of the human body that we can see with our naked eye without the aid of a microscope. And then there's microscopic anatomy, which we use to study cells and tissues. Again, gross anatomy is called macroscopic anatomy, or also known as macroscopic anatomy. That means we don't need a microscope to see the structures. And this would include surface anatomy, which is studying general form and superficial markings. Regional anatomy, studying different regions of the body, and systemic is studying the organ systems. Microscopic anatomy is typically for, like I say, the study of cells or cytology, the study of tissues or histology. And that is our chapter 3 is the study of cells, and chapter 4 is the study of tissues. So, while anatomy means structure, physiology means function. So what we always say about the relationship between the two is that the structure determines the function. So anatomy, the structure, gives clues about the physiology or the function. And physiology can be explained in terms of anatomy or structure. So I always remember it this way. The structure determines the function. Okay, so human physiology is the study of functions of the human body. We can talk about cell physiology, special physiology. That would be studying specific organs like the heart or the brain. Systemic physiology would be the function of a specific organ system, like, the cardiovascular system. Pathophysiology or pathological physiology is studying the effects of diseases on organs or system functions. And number 2, how anatomy and physiology are closely related. Remember, the anatomy is the structure, the physiology is the function, and structure determines function. The way something is shaped, its structure determines its function or what it's going to do. And this is all the way down to the level of molecules. A histologist is going to be probably more focused on microscopic anatomy than gross anatomy, because to see cells and tissues, you need a microscope. All right, levels of organization, we would start with atoms. Atoms are the smallest units of matter. Atoms combine to form molecules. Molecules combine to form cells. And then cells form tissues, tissues form organs, organs form organ systems, and then all the organ systems together form the entire organism. And here is the levels of organization shown for you from atom all the way to, the atoms start here, and it goes from atom all the way to the organism. And then you'll need to go from simplest to most complex. That means from atom all the way to the organism. You'll need to know that list in order.